Hello there folks, and how is it going? And welcome back to another video, and welcome to the inside of the van. Now this video is like foreshadowing at its finest, because today I'm going to do something completely different. We're not going out to the field, we're not taking any photographs. I just want to talk about the kind of like travel accessories that I use when I go away on a trip, or any kind of extended like photography adventure. So if you're interested in any of that kind of jazz in relation to what like somebody like me would use while they're out traveling and being prepared, you're most welcome to stick around. But obviously I understand that these videos aren't necessarily everybody's cup of tea, but I figure it would be a nice way kind of like to share how I go through my process. So without wasting too much time, I want to try and keep these as short and sweet as I can. The very first thing that I tend to always bring with me when I go out shooting is a tripod. Now look, everybody knows tripods are amazing, and I have these. This is a three-legged thing. This is the Winston, the kind of bigger fella, and then what you guys are sitting on here, I have also as well the kind of travel version of the tripod. And now I got these from Brendan when I was working down there in the Algarve with him. They both were absolutely wrecked. As you could imagine, that guy put his camera gear through all its paces. And the deal was, look, if I can fix them, I can have them. So I fixed them, and now I have them. This particular one I actually needed to send to Three-Legged Thing to get a couple of replacement parts. But other than that, man, it is sturdy and light and awesome. And the travel version tripod as well is really fantastic. So highly recommend the Three-Legged Thing, guys. But a tripod is such a great thing to have, particularly if you're anyway like me and you enjoy doing a bit of long exposure photography, particularly at the sea. You know yourself, you're shooting at around a second or a half a second or so, and a tripod is really helpful for that, unless you've got like insane in-body stabilization, which I do not. But a tripod is a well worth investment for sure, hands down one of the best things you could possibly invest in. But moving on swiftly, we got a bit of rock and roll going on here, guys, because the suspension on this thing is still so raised because there's nothing in here. But the next thing I want to talk about is filters. Now I love a good filter, as many of you who watch this channel know. I'm going to take this hat off because it's roasting. I love a good filter, and as I have mentioned before, I have the case filters and I also have the K&F filters, but I actually tend to use them both kind of like together, because I prefer the screw-in magnetic rings of the K&F filters than I do the inlaid magnetic rings from the case. As many of you know from my previous video, they hopped off one time I was out shooting and fell into the ocean, which wasn't fun at all. So yeah, you don't want that to happen. But when they're screwed in, there's just no moving them at all, and they just feel way more rock solid and all that kind of stuff. So it's really well worth it. I also have in here a variable ND filter, which for anybody who doesn't know is basically just a filter that you can adjust here like this, and it makes it brighter or darker, and it just kind of ranges between a few different stops of light. And I use that predominantly when I was using this camera that you guys are filming on at the moment as my main camera. I would use this on the front of that when Senior Spielbergo was doing her wonderful shaky cam. But because obviously this camera is the only one that I have at the moment, I use now the Gizmo, the Osmo Pocket. But anyways, these filters are fantastic. Now look, the case filters, the quality of them are like second to none. They're wonderful. The K&F quality are really good, but if you can afford to splash out on the case filters, it's kind of like one of those things where you'd be better off investing on the kind of higher tier stuff, and I would say that probably for most of all of this stuff. But anyways, fantastic. Couldn't recommend filters enough, particularly a polarizer. If you're anyway like me and you enjoy shooting the sea and all that kind of fun stuff, a polarizer really does help kind of help cut through glare and reflection and then like the wet rocks and things like that you may come across. And but definitely recommend a good filter system for sure. And yeah, couldn't recommend case enough. So I probably should have had a lot more of this organized before I pressed record, without me having to keep going down into the bag like this. But the next thing that I would like to talk about is just cleaning. And I have this little cleaning kit. It's just a brand, it's just a random brand that I found on Amazon, and it's just fantastic. It's got this little hard shell case that everything sits in. It's got a little mini blower. I also then have some kind of like alcohol spray for the lenses, a nice lens cloth. But then I also have this wonderful tool, and I could, if you don't want a whole kit, I would highly recommend you get one of these kind of lens pens. These are great because they've got this beautiful felt thing on this end, and then if you flip it over and then brush, it's got this lovely soft brush that's just really, really nice for cleaning your lenses and stuff. But also in here I also have then sensor cleaning swabs here, and then I've got the kind of sensor cleaning solution that goes on the end of that swab, because you know yourself, if you're photographing around dust and sand and desert, you know, you have to keep your gear clean, because it's, everybody loves a good sensor spot just as much as me, I'm sure, but you know, you got to try your best to keep these clean, and it's always handy to have, just in case somebody else is with you and they don't happen to have one. Sensor cleaning kit and lens cleaning kits, highly recommend. So one of the things that I really struggled with in the beginning was figuring out, how am I going to back up all of these pictures? Now when Orla and I first started to travel, and I had my very first camera, I had like 25 megabyte memory card. It was a ridiculous thing, and everything had to get burnt onto CDs, which took forever. But obviously with the advances in technology, things move a lot faster. But backup storage, I have a hard shell case. It's not a branded name, it's just one. Go friend and friends, and so couldn't recommend something like this enough. Absolutely worth every single penny. This one wasn't very expensive at all, and it holds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 SD cards, and then underneath each of these SD cards it holds a little micro SD card. If you fly a drone, or if you have an Osmo Pocket, for instance, definitely well worth investing in that. But another kind of add-on to this, I travel then with a portable SSD, which is this SanDisk, the real rugged one. I really, really love this. The transfer rates on it are fantastic. And then I also travel with this, is like a dongle. I tend to not bring my laptop if I'm going away, and I tend to just use this as my backup. Now this is the power brick that I use to power the camera that you guys are sitting on, because the batteries that I have just don't last long at all anymore. They're just so old and so used, they just don't hold their charge anymore. So I have to use this power brick with a dummy battery into the camera, which is a whole separate thing. But for this, I tend to use a dongle, which I plug into the hard drive, and then I just use my phone as the kind of interface to copy and paste. And then I use this as well in tandem with that to power it all, essentially, just because when you're taking hundreds of pictures, you don't want your phone to die halfway through the transfer, and this is a really, really worthwhile thing to have. And like, this is a 20,000 milliamp power brick, so it does last a good long while. In fairness, it does take a bit to charge, but sure, look, anything that big would. But definitely would recommend this kind of combo of fast SSD, good dongle that has power delivery as well, and a good solid power brick as well to have with you too. And then of course your SD cards, so that way then you're kind of getting a bit of a double backup. You're backing up to the SSD, and then you've got your backups then on your SD cards as well. As much as I would love to have cloud storage to have the third backup, I don't, so we just take that gamble as we go. But definitely would recommend a good solid solution when it comes to portability and backups when you don't want to bring your laptop with you. Now, another thing that I really find invaluable when I remember to actually put batteries in is this. This is a intervalometer. Again, this is just no real kind of name to it. Photolex. It's just a random one I bought on Amazon. I really love it, and I actually have a strip of glow-in-the-dark tape. But these things are really wonderful because they're like a more tactile and a more kind of directly connected version of, I know you can get apps and things like that that can control the shutter and your, you know, the camera from your phone, and I have toyed around with a few of those. but for me they've just been a bit hit and miss. But when you've got this fella plugged straight into the camera, it's like it just works directly, and I really love that about it. So it's something like this is really invaluable for when you're looking to do seascape photography, which I do a lot of. If you also enjoy astrophotography, it's a hugely beneficial thing, particularly if you're looking to kind of take multiple exposures over a course of time. You can essentially just do that and just set it up and it just keeps ticking. This also enables you to do time lapses. If you're now, look, a lot of cameras nowadays have built-in intervalometers and time lapse features, but if you don't, then something like this would be what you would need to capture those as well. So yeah, hugely worth the while. They're not expensive at all. I think this was like 15 euros or something like that, and then you just need to make sure you buy the specific kind of Sony one for whichever connector goes into the back of your camera. So definitely would recommend an intervalometer for sure. So another wonderful thing that I tend to bring with me the huge majority of the time is this head torch. It's really good. And now look, this is a black diamond one. It's not hugely expensive like some of the crazy expensive ones, but it's not the kind of like cheapest version of a head torch. I kind of understand how important these things are, so I wanted to kind of splash out a little bit. Now I say splash out, it probably cost me about like 15 euros or 20 euros, but it's just got all the kind of features that somebody like me would appreciate. So it's got multiple strengths in terms of lumens, in terms of the brightness of its light, but then obviously then it's got that wonderful red light as well, which helps, you know, keep your eyes adjusted to the wonder of the night sky if you enjoy astrophotography. Definitely would recommend a good head torch, and this would be the kind of thing that I would suggest, not like the filters. Just invest a few extra euros because it really would just go further for you, and the batteries last a good while in this too. So definitely recommend a good solid head torch. And the next thing I have here in my pocket is a travel adapter. Now look, the worst thing you could do is turn up to like your camp or your hotel or your Airbnb or your hostel and be like, I don't have a plug for this. But this is the kind of thing that's really wonderful. You've got just a bunch of USB ports on the back, and then an interchangeable socket on the front. And this, so like if you're going to America, for instance, you just got this straight up into the wall. But then here in Europe, you've got the 2 pins, and it just clips in. And then say, for instance, then you go to England or back home to Ireland, for instance, I also have another one that's got the 3 prong. So definitely would recommend something very simple, very easy, but it does the job. Now look, the charging rate is a bit slower because you've got the 4 here, but that doesn't matter because if you're just going to sleep anyways, everything will be fully charged for you the following day. So definitely would recommend something along these lines as well. So definitely. So now we get into a bit more of the kind of not so photography related items, but just as important. So the first thing is this. If you go on any kind of long haul flights or any kind of flights at all, oh my god, sleeping is just painful. I have tried all sorts. I've like used my shirt to like tie my head to the chair, you know, so it doesn't fall or anything like that, and I was thinking, I wonder if a head hammock is a thing where you kind of like, you know the way you do this when you're on a plane? I was like, oh my god, kill me. And but if it's just a way of stopping your head falling that bit too far, you'd probably be all right. I used to tie my head up using a shirt, but then I got one of these in the airport. It's the cheap kind of version, nothing fancy at all, but it really does help. It just helps you kind of stop the nodding. And then if you combine this with the head tying to the chair, it's the perfect combo. I slept very well on planes doing that. I know I look crazy, but it does work. And another thing I use this, now this is just very personal. If you've ever spent any time with me, you know that I have like really bad ears and I can get really bad ear infections from time to time, which is a real pain. But this has actually come in handy for that reason too, because sometimes say you go in, you check in somewhere wherever you're staying, sleeping, and if your ear, or at least if my ear is really sore, I actually just use this then instead of a pillow, because obviously it just keeps my head elevated but my ear then is elevated off the pillow, so I just sleep a lot better with using something along these lines. So yeah, I really do love a good travel cushion like this. Fantastic. Now we'll rush through the last few because it's probably been yabbering on here. A good solid set of noise cancelling headphones are invaluable for when you travel because the plane is just noisy. I have these Sony ones. I actually got these free when I bought one of my old phones, you know, the way they do those promotions, and these have been wonderful. I have changed these cushions in the past, and yeah, they're just like brand new now. They're wonderful. I really love these headphones. I do have a set of in-ear JBL headphones that I use while I run and stuff, but again, with my stupid ears, I may have to figure out a different solution to that. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But a good solid set of headphones, highly recommend for sure. So the last thing on the list, it's a bit ridiculous and people sometimes look at you a bit sideways when you start taking it all out, is coffee. Now if you know me, you know I like coffee. You know my past in relation to how my kind of world has kind of been in terms of the coffee world. This is a fellow travel mug. Fantastic. Absolutely would recommend this if you enjoy drinking any kind of beverage while you're driving or on the road. It's got a lovely clip and it's really great. I also travel with the AeroPress Go. I thought about buying a V60, but it's just like there's way too much involved in that. AeroPress for the win. This is ridiculous, but this is my grinder. I like to travel with whole beans, so I like to just grind on the road when I can. The pre-ground stuff just goes too stale too fast. But anyway, that's a whole other thing. I'd nerd out about coffee all day if you really want me to. But a good coffee system is really integral for a good happy meal while I travel and, you know, be about the place. So yeah, really a good travel coffee system for sure. It just looks mad when people are like, is he grinding coffee? And then it's like, yeah. So that's really about it, folks. I hope this has given you a bit of an insight into the kind of way that I think about packing and the way that I think about the kind of things that I bring with me that aren't necessarily a camera and a lens. These are just the important things that I like to kind of have a checklist of. Obviously you bring your passport when you're going traveling and things like that as well. Are just as important, but nonetheless. But I'm just going to really leave it here. I don't want to like kind of go on too long about it. And if you still made it this far, I really congratulate you. You can comment banana below and let me know. And of course, as always, these videos are sponsored by Orla and myself. If you're any way inclined and towards the work that I do and the workshops that I have on offer, you'll find all the links to that wonderful stuff down below. But for now, if you like the video, folks, give it a no like. And if you fancy following along for more adventures like the ones that are about to come up, you're most welcome to hit that subscribe button. But for now, I will see you all on the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Cheers.